You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good evening and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. I'm live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. I'm Al Graham, and my joint host, Tamara Cartwright, as you can see, is not with me tonight. She has a new job and she is at work, and so she has tonight off, and she's hoping to get back to the broadcast as soon as she can, and we'll just see what happens. She's got work, so we'll see if hopefully she can get some shift changes, and she'll be back here for next week or in the coming weeks. Until then, I'll just keep going along and having guests like I do for tonight. It's always nice to talk to people in different parts of the country and the world and different countries and find out what's going on in their situation or their neck of the woods. And tonight I'll be doing that with my guest. And we'll see what else. There was something I saw on LinkedIn today, and it had to do with taxes and medicinal cannabis. As we know, patients here in Canada, there's taxes when it comes to our medicine, which is not right. I never liked it when I was seeing it commented on in the U.S., and I certainly don't like knowing patients are paying taxes on their medicine. I know myself, I had purchased some cannabis, way back, like back when there was one licensed producer. That was, I'm gonna say, probably like 2007 to 2008 when I purchased some cannabis from them. And I was taxed then, and as far as I know, nothing's different. So there's this idea that's being floated around that there's a possibility that in our next coming federal election that taxes and cannabis could become a hot issue. As we know, here in Canada, a lot of the retail stores and the licensed producers are being taxed to death. Which all in a way it all gets passed down to ourselves. And people who go to the stores are paying that, and studies have shown that almost half of the people who go into the stores are patients. So it'd be nice, if they could have the tax removed. Now, unfortunately, this proposal I've seen has to do with only removing the excise tax. Personally, myself, as I just said, I'd much rather see all taxes removed off of cannabis. It's not when it comes to medicinal use. Even if it, like I realize, it might be hard to try to separate things at times, but basically they've been making us carry cards for 20 years. So just think of it as a tax exempt card when you go into a licensed producer's place or when you place your order, wherever you do that, so that a patient can get their medicine tax free. Because it's not right to be, taxes are, a lot of people look at it as sin taxes, and it's not right. And not only that, markups, as we've seen, the OCS has recently announced that they are changing their percentages on their markups. But that all comes back to the patients too, because the fact, like I said, so many patients are going to the stores because the stores are sometimes a little more easily accessible versus some patients who don't know where to go, or the patients who are trying or learning to grow for themselves and have problems. Maybe some patients don't know how to create things, how to make salves and lotions, and it's easier for them to go to the store in order to do it. Even though stores, as I've mentioned several times, are supposed to be for recreational purposes here in Canada, but you can obviously find some medicinal products. Especially, I know one store that has a wellness section in it. So what's that title? But other than that, keep your fingers crossed that maybe cannabis and taxes can become an issue in the next federal election, and we can see them eliminated completely off of the patients, and some reductions for those who are in the legal world with the stores and that in order to be able to keep people afloat. So, well, other than that, I think I am done on that topic, and I think it's time to bring in my guest. So I like to, at this time, I like to introduce our guest, a woman who's educating patients, and not just patients, and non-patients, people all about medicinal cannabis. And I like to welcome Lex Fox to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Lex. How you doing?
I am well, Al. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on the broadcast and coming and agreeing to come and talk to me. As I tell a lot of people, it's just more like a conversation versus a nail it down interview and stuff like that. So
yes, well, and I've watched the show for quite a while now. So that's fun for me to actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good to know that you're a watcher of the program, and now you're an opportunity to be a guest here on the program and tell your story and let people know what you're doing in order to help educate people. And I always believe that, and others here at the Pace Radio Network believe that when people and patients share their stories, it educates others. And it helps them. They say, hey, look at this person. Look what they're doing for their advocacy. And hey, geez, I could probably do the same thing.
Yes, and the lack of education is
big time,
in my opinion, the biggest barrier that we have when it comes to moving forward, whether it's legislatively, whether it's societal, whether it's medically. There is such a gap there. The perceptions are off. The facts that people think they have are off. The studies, the numbers, the statistics that they show are off. It's the lack of education is so much of a bigger problem than we even realize.
Okay, well, before we get into all that, why don't we let's go back to the beginning. I always like to find out from the beginning what people got involved in and why they got involved. And sometimes I even ask questions. I haven't asked this one in a long time. And sometimes I get funny answers. Sometimes I get really serious answers. And some of them are just, it was just like this. And it's sort of off topic, but it is on topic. And can you remember the first time you ever smoked any cannabis?
I do.
And what the experience was like?
I do. Being a teenager in America where it was, illegal everywhere. It was on a gravel road in a car with some real shady characters, I'm sure. And because that was how you did it. That that was the only place that you had to go. And so yeah, I do. And I remember going to eat. We went out to eat afterwards, and I remember thinking, I'm supposed to be hungrier than this. Mm-hmm. And then the second time I smoked, that's when I got the munchies. I didn't have the munchies the first time. The second time I definitely did. But it's funny because, thinking back to what my perception was before I had smoked, mm-hmm. and then my perception after, although I'm lucky enough to not have been, literally harmed from some of those misconceptions, that's not the case for everyone.
No, that's right.
So yeah,
I guess I always say that cannabis isn't for everybody, just like cheeseburgers.
It's not. And maybe smoking cannabis isn't for everybody. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are a tincture or a concentrate person. Maybe there are so many different mediums that people will not even explore. I often talk about my parents. They're a big reason that I got into this because they come from a generation where reefer madness was still a thing, and it was in society today, it might be looked down upon, but back then it wasn't even spoken about.
That's right. Oh yeah.
And there's an entire generation of people that are going to end up spending the last of their days in pain and in less than proper body function than they should, and so on and so forth, and down the line, all because they're not willing to even look at that as an option because of the stigma that's there.
That's right. Exactly. There's so many. I've had it in my own family, situation like that.
Yes.
Where they wouldn't try it because there was
pot.
always the negative.
Yes.
And
always
negative.
negative.
I never I never guarantee anybody that's going to cure them from cancer, but you can pretty well bet that for a lot of people that the quality of life can improve.
Yes. Yes.
And they need to know that.
Right. People need to know that because they don't, because they have been taught to associate cannabis with the negative for so long. If you look at what it does, just for the brain itself with your receptors, and we have endocannabinoids that are naturally in our system and in our body, and people don't realize that, like it works the way it does because it is working with your body, not against it. It is working with your body. The only plan and goal it has is for homeostasis. That is it. And so that is what it works towards in your body. And people have been misled.
People have been misled. Exactly. And that's what got me, like, for myself, and you started to talk about your parents.
Yes.
Like myself, I became a patient. I have Crohn's disease. And because of what I experienced, I had to tell everybody. And this is what, I've been doing the Pace Radio Show. This is my 10th year now in the Pace Radio Show.
Yay.
And I was doing radio for 5 years, even before then, talking about cannabis. But it's sharing those experiences, helps other people. So where was I going with that? I lost where I was going exactly with that. So I couldn't shut up. I had to tell everybody. And it sounds like your experience. You knew of something and you had to get involved with your parents. Like, I don't know whether you yourself, whether you're a patient.
I am not. I am not a patient myself. But my parents were only half of me, following this crazy idea. But my daughter is the other motivation behind it, because I look at her generation, and we always want better for our kids. We always want them to have less of the struggles that we did. Yeah. And, let's face it, we all know that an abstinence only program of, just say no to drugs, that doesn't work.
Doesn't have. No.
So I would like to think that maybe we've wisened up a little bit and are at a point to where, my hope for my daughter's generation is that they will know certain things, like the first time you smoke pot and you get too high. If you sniff, obviously don't snort it, but sniff black pepper. It blocks your CB2 receptors, and your psychoactive effects are gone within 3 to 4 seconds. I remember the first time I got too high. That would have been nice to know.
I've actually, to tell you the truth, I've never heard about the pepper.
Yes.
Man, it's not very often I get too high either, but it has happened. But
right, it's not very often though.
Exactly.
But so I think to my daughter and her generation, and why not make it easier for them?
Why not educate them? Like, I don't know how old your daughter is, but I know, like there was DARE in schools. Like, you obviously out in the US, you guys had DARE, and what that did to people. And why not teach the younger people the actual truth? Like you're saying,
yes, teach them the actual truth. What a concept. Because statistically, Nancy Reagan, she had a lot of push behind the DARE program, but it just wasn't in the numbers, and it didn't. It didn't have a slow start. It didn't have an early fizzle out at the end. It just didn't work.
It didn't work. It really, what happened is it proved that drugs are really everywhere, which stands for dare as well.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. I like that. Yeah. And yeah, it just, and I remember thinking back to being a student and being in dare, and I can't say it was, impactful. I can't say that the first time I smoked pot, I was thinking about 5th grade in the dare class, but,
Yeah, exactly.
But I would like to think that I learned at least something from it, whether it be a thought pattern or a different way to think, something. But yeah, the DARE program actually is kind of where that was the first thing that I really dove into when I started this whole thing. And I took basically the same principles of the DARE program. I took it out of an abstinence only model, and I put it into a social and emotional intelligence based model that involves like basic 21st century living skills, which once were legal everywhere in this country. I mean, it already is, but especially then, it's a common household item. People need to know. It's the same thing as how, that there are guns in the house, but they're locked up in the gun safe. You know that they're dangerous, but you also know that they can protect you. Same concept.
Yeah, and you know what happens is when you get unresponsible people, you end up with the statistics of the children and so on and so forth that end up with it, and you end
up with these new stereotypes and these new stigmas that come about, and there's nobody out there doing damage control. Nobody is doing any sort of damage control. War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds did the same thing that Reefer Madness did, except War of the Worlds, they had damage control. They had the author sitting right there going, no, this was just a reenactment. They had damage control. Nobody came around after Reefer Madness and said this was just an exaggeration.
Well, there's still Reefer Madness. Still Reefer Madness going on.
Yes. I say that we make a movie and we call it Reefer Goodness, and you do the exact opposite of it.
Yeah. Well, I always like, I'm sure you're probably along the same line. You don't like the stigma. You're trying to eliminate the stigma, and one way of doing that is proving that those misconceptions are wrong.
Yes. Everything down to the stereotype of living in your parents' basement, eating potato chips, playing video games all day. That's what people think of when they hear stoner. No. What you should think of is a doctor. You should think of lawyers. You should think of real estate agents. You should think of CEOs. That's the kind of thing that, that we really, that's the reality of it.
There it is.
So then the image has eventually got, it's got to catch up eventually, but I don't know that I'll still be alive by the time it does, I feel like.
Well, here, basically, both countries, like our prohibition.
You guys have it so different than us.
90 years, 1937 to 2018, something like that, is what our prohibition was. So there's all those years. They're not going to, and like yourselves, you guys still have it federally, even though you got medicinal legal in 42 states, and you got it recreational legal in somewhere around 23 or 25 states.
Yes.
Like, why is it still? Like, I know that there is, in one of our news broadcasts, we talked about there is a process that they're looking into rescheduling it, but I just don't hope. I don't hold much to hope on that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
Neither do I, because that should have been the first thing that went across any desk. I mean,
obvious.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's obvious what the people want.
Yes, and it's obvious what works. There are case study after case study after medical paper after
There's so many studies. Some people turn around and say that the cannabis plant is actually one of the most studied plants out there, but yet,
I wouldn't argue that.
There's so much more that they always say we need more studies.
No,
And
no, we don't. It's like your record got stuck on. Like, okay, well then what comes after the studies? What have you studied? You know?
yeah,
And yeah, and you guys have it so different than us. Because not only with
well,
that whole part of it, then even when you are a responsible consumer who wants to sit down at the end of the day and smoke a doobie, you still got to
yeah,
look over your shoulder because the cops could be
yeah,
there. you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, you're where you are. You're in the U.S.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm here in Canada,
Yes. Yes.
where
And
I
I'm
can walk down this. I can walk down the street and smoke a joint and say, "Hi, officer. How's your day going?" And
blows my mind.
not have to worry about that in my province, because some of the other provinces don't allow you to consume
Sure.
publicly.
Sure.
We're here in Ontario. We can do that. Now I don't know where your situation
So so I reside in Iowa. And we do have a medical program in Iowa.
is.
I believe that we have a little over 15,000 cardholders right now. But no part of it has been decriminalized. No part of it has been legalized of any sort either. So
Mm.
so basic things
Got some
like
work to do.
last year I was arrested for the charge was gathering where marijuana was used.
What?
Yes,
You were charged,
not only charged, convicted. Okay, felony
convicted
gathering.
of being where marijuana.
Yes,
Wow.
the actual charge is gathering where marijuana is being used. Felony charge. Okay, so they dropped that down to a misdemeanor. But in both of the police officers' reports, they had stated that there was no marijuana being used. There was no, there was no consumption going on whatsoever. But because I was still at that house where there was marijuana, I was charged with gathering and I did 10 days in jail.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Still
Like
paying on the fine
you
for it.
didn't even have any cannabis on you.
None
You were
on
in
me,
it.
did not
You were
even
in a
partake.
house that had cannabis in it, and they charged you with gathering. So
Yep.
it's basically because they can't prove who owned it.
Yeah.
Is that they're just blaming everybody that's there?
Yes, that's kind of they've kind of written that into
Wow.
law, because when you go in and you go, okay, whose is this? And nobody says anything. Well, now they found a way that they can legally go, okay, all of you go then. So that's what they
Holy
do.
jeepers. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And so there's no recreational, none of that stuff. So like what is when it comes to your card holder or the medical end of things, what is it there for? What like are you allowed to grow or are you only allowed to consume?
No,
What's
no,
the
it is consumption only. And they when the board first voted on what their standards were going to be, they had some doctors come in and they had them teach for an afternoon on the difference between how flour is weighed in grams and concentrate is measured in micrograms, so on and so forth. When they voted on micrograms of flour and
right?
grams of concentrate. Okay. This coming from someone who was actually there. Because he had messaged and asked me, is this correct? So no, then they had to go back and they had to do a revote and so things like that. The lack of education, it
Lack of
is
education.
so reckless. It is so reckless.
And these are lawmakers
Yes.
doing this. Like, do they
And get
do
paid to
any?
do
Like,
this.
do they do any outreach? Like, I can like a couple years ago, I lived in a town where they voted out allowing cannabis retail stores to be,
Okay.
and I don't think they did any research whatsoever when they made that decision. And
Probably.
they were lawmakers, and it's up. They should be, like I wrote the mayor and offered to go speak to them, but people like yourselves have to speak up in
Yes.
order to make change.
Yes.
Whether that's making that call, writing that note or sending them that message.
Well, and people don't understand like this. they think, oh, well, it's just pot. No, this is a fight. Like for some people,
Oh
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
For it's one thing for you and I to try and advocate that, but try and advocate that for a child or with a child.
Yeah,
Who is
yeah. Well,
and you put cannabis and kids together. That's like the only thing that's going to get you a slam door in the face quicker than talking about cannabis in the first place down here. So it's really difficult because kids die because
they sure do
medicine because they're waiting for them to vote on it in the wrong measurements.
Oh,
it's not okay. What we're doing
no,
is
it's not.
Okay.
Because normally, like when it comes to the kids, okay, and especially the kids that are dealing with epilepsy, and you can see the difference.
Yes.
In the children, in the number of seizures, or
within
the
hours.
way that their quality of life has gone up.
Within
There's
hours.
so many children that have done that. That how can you say it's not medicine? Like people seizures from 300 down to 3 in a week. Like what? Right.
People who have lived with cerebral palsy their whole lives and lived with spastic muscles and and respiratory systems that are, God, what's the word I'm looking for? That are constricted, a little bit of THC. And obviously they're not going to sit there and smoke a doobie with you.
No.
But
that was the problem. Yeah, that was the problem in the old days. Like I know a parent that had her son smoke from a bong, and that was like this was this was.
Oh, I bet that was.
I'm going back like probably close to 20 years ago.
Good for her though.
Yeah, but and like she wasn't quiet about it. There's actually a write up and all that on the situation of.
Sure.
Of her and her son, and now her son is he's out there in the working world and doing his thing. Like it's
yes it's with all the stories that people have, whether it's from I lived in a closet for 6 years and now I can be out among people, or
isn't that nice?
Yes, things like that, like stories like that, or stories of my son finally can use his arm, has enough, relaxation in his muscles and his body that he can use his own utensils now. Things like that. These are monumental in people's lives. Monumental.
Yeah. So it sounds like I'm going to go to a break here, but what you've just mentioned there, basically it sounds like you have a son that's maybe using cannabis medicinally, and we didn't get a chance to talk. So this is.
I know. You're close.
Before the show, we got to talk briefly before the show.
Yes.
And I talked about the fact that some of us become advocates because of what we experienced ourselves, whether it's something that we felt or the fact that we got to see somebody else. And some of us become accidental advocates because of our children. And
mine actually is not my child. I have my older brother was born with cerebral palsy.
Can I jump in there and stop you so that we can go to a commercial break?
Yes.
And that you can let people know that we're going to talk about this person with the cerebral palsy and the fact on how cannabis has helped them. Right. Okay. Off we go. I'll return and continue my talk with my guest, Alexys Fox. You're watching the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBGTV broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with, and then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Tonight, Tamara is off. She's at work, but I've got a guest, and that's Alexys Fox. She's the founder of Responsible Consumers of Cannabis. But first, before we get into, I want to learn more about that. But first, before the break, Lex, you were talking about patient cerebral palsy.
Yes.
So let's get back to that.
My older brother was born with cerebral palsy. And although he is not a patient, I'm gunning for him to be. I have done on my own over the last 2.5 or 3 years. I started doing extensive research on cannabinoids and how they work in a body with cerebral palsy. And some of the results that people are getting they're life-changing. They're life-changing. People are able to have motor skills that they have never had before, such as driving their chair on their own, eating with a fork. And, we had kind of touched on less seizures and things like that. But yeah, I guess that's why I chose that topic to do, to dive into and study on my own.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, you've got a loved one, obviously.
Yes.
Yes. And you want the best for them. And, if cannabis is something there that can help, why not? Like, that's what they always say. Do the research first. Well, that's what it sounds like what you're doing.
Well, yeah. I look at, the handful of pills that
Mm-hmm.
go down his throat every morning that everybody else seems to be fine with. But why not try something natural?
Try something else. Yeah, like I don't know. Like I was at one time, I was on 32 different pills, plus an injection that I had to do myself. So,
I
like, I know what you mean.
yeah, I mean, I have a
crazy.
girlfriend who was on 68 pills a day.
Oh,
What doctor in their right mind would prescribe 68 pills a day and not mention cannabis as an option?
yeah. They'd have to have bowls on the table or on the counter for each time that they had to have the pills. Because I know with the amount that I had to have bowls morning, noon, and at night instead of one of those little flipping things for Monday to Sunday on them. You know?
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
live your life by that.
Yeah.
You end up living your life by that, and that's not living. So many people
No.
think that everybody is out there to get high. No. Some people are just want to live.
Yeah.
And that's
And not everybody wants to start off smoking.
right. That's not, because that might not be
Like you're gonna give
what
your
it
brother
is.
joints, as to start off with joint. I doubt that very
No.
much.
Right. What I would recommend would I would be interested to see how his system would react, like, to some edibles. But obviously, I mean, different topicals and different things that, not only would help with pain, but would help with the spasticity.
Yeah.
It's got so many different properties that, again, like I said, its whole goal and mission is homeostasis. It wants to make the body balanced. That is it.
Yeah.
That's all it does. So as long as it's
Yeah.
ingested in a way that your body can process, you're good,
Well, as they say, autoimmune illnesses,
Yes.
it's that things are out of balance.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we live in a time to where pills and medication is just shoved, literally just shoved down our throats. And yeah, so it's unfortunate.
Well, it's like, as you learn more about the benefits, because like I know myself with my Crohn's, that's the first thing I went and did.
Yeah.
Was, hey, what are the benefits? And this was 20 years ago, and back then it was even less. So you search your medications and the way you can consume it, and that's the good thing now, is that there are so many different ways that you can, that patients aren't always required to make them. It's if they can, and they can do it much more affordable and in a way that like I don't know whether you're restricted on any THC milligrammage or anything of any within your medical program. Like, do you whether you even have any dispensaries? Like,
We have Delta dispensaries, but yeah, anything over 0.03 is not allowed.
Huh?
Anything over 0.03 THC. Yeah. Hi, welcome to Iowa. Yeah.
Oh, so you're only allowed to have hemp strain. Like that's basically 0.03. Like, really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Like, are you like, I know Florida had a law at one time. Weren't even allowed to smoke it.
Yeah, we don't have any restrictions on that.
Okay, all right. 0.03. So you've got a cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have licensed producers that produce the cannabis?
Yes, they have 2 licensed producers. There are 5. There are now, between the 2 of them, there are 5 production sites in the state that will be up and running after the first of the year, supposedly. So I think that they're working towards, of course, those are geared towards medical, but
Yeah,
But
well, what we saw here in Canada, they start out that way.
Right, but
They
why
don't know.
five? Why five? We're such a small state.
Yeah, how many
That's
people live
funny.
there?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Look it up.
I'm gonna.
But so a patient, like your brother, for
Yeah.
him to get licensed to be able to consume cannabis, it doesn't sound like it can even grow it. So it's consuming it, and that's buying it from the medical dispensary.
Which, by
What
the way, I'm gonna
process would he have to? What process does he have to get? Is it just one doctor that can sign, or does it need does he need multiple doctors? Like our program used to be multiple doctors when it first came out.
Yes, ours is a referral off of a referral system. I
Mhm.
don't believe that it's more than 2 doctors, but it is 2, I believe. And yeah, it's just, it's the red tape process of paperwork. And then, they verify your diagnosis and so on and so forth. But even at that, for medical, 1 gram, like a 1 gram cartridge is $90
What?
for a patient. For a patient. For a
Cartridge? You
patient.
mean like a vape cartridge? Like a vape
Yes.
cartridge?
Yes. 1 gram.
$90.
$90 for a patient.
Wow! Holy crap!
Yes. So we have the same as no medical marijuana program, as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like we can walk in and buy a vape cartridge at our stores, like right here in the little town that I live in, and pay like $26 or $30. Just depends. I don't even think I've ever seen any at 40. So yeah, wow, that's
3.1
crazy.
million. I know, isn't it? 3.1 million
3.1 million. That's a little
people in
more
Iowa.
than That's a little more. That's a little bit bigger than Toronto. Toronto's about 2.5 million. That's just the city of Toronto. Never mind the
Oh
province.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Really
you're
put that into
yourself.
perspective there.
You got cities there in the U.S. that are bigger than that too. So,
Right, we
but
got gravel roads longer than your main street.
yeah. Well, a lot of ours up here are paved now.
Yeah.
That's so now with the recreational consumers of cannabis. Your goal with that is to help educate and remove the stigma of cannabis. We got a message. We got a message from Sid.
Oh.
Sid says, "Have a nice day."
You too, Sid.
And Sid also says it's a herb. It is a herb for treatment of curing cancer and immune variety of anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and I had kind of mentioned to you before the show that my whole company mission and vision has changed 100%. So since 2019 until just recently, I had kind of operated under the concept that once you get the education part to people, then that stigma will be easy to get rid of. I now know that is incorrect, and that there's really no other way around it. So I have completely kind of changed my mission now to having a goal of eradicating stigma and eliminating it so that we can get the education in.
Right.
It should be the other way around in my brain, but it's not. And I didn't want to really accept that. I thought people would listen no matter what. And that's here again, like, nope, you got to get rid of the stigma if you want anything to get in.
Yeah. And that's, I understand where you're coming from on that, because, myself and others have been, using the education, but sometimes you can, as the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make him drink it. You can supply the information and the education to a person who's completely against cannabis, but it doesn't mean that they're going to read it.
Right.
Or even listen.
Right. Or actually absorb any of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Yeah. Like,
it's
that's what I like about when people can share their stories and you can see the difference.
yes.
Like the kids, especially to me,
Yes.
the kids, because the kids are out, like, a 3-year-old who's dealing with epileptic seizures isn't sitting on that couch eating that bag of potatoes that the stigma and what prohibition has put into some people's minds.
Right. And watch one video of a child with epilepsy getting a treatment using cannabis.
Yeah.
One video. I don't care which video it is. I don't care whose child it is. Just watch one. If you still think that it should be illegal for them after that, then
I really can't understand. Like they say, well, they don't want the child to have cannabis because of the effects on its developing brain.
Right.
You tell me how good is it on a child's brain to have 300 seizures a week?
Right.
You can reduce them down to, even 3.
And you
maybe
look
just
at
cure those seizures, but it makes the quality of life and helps save that child's brain versus taking those seizures.
well, and you look at, people put us in the same category as like heroin addicts or heroin users, which is
Schedule 1.
Right? There you go. And we are not those birds. We do not flock together with them. But a lot of times you look at it, okay, well, now what do? They take you off the heroin, they put you on the methadone. It wasn't my drugs.
What about giving that patient a choice of taking those opiate painkillers versus cannabis?
Yes.
What's so hard about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's lots of evidence out there. There's lots of stats. There's lots of stories, including my own. Cannabis instead of opiates. Sure, there's a place for opiates, but there's also a place where cannabis can reduce that.
There are so many people that have gotten themselves off of opiates.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 of them, they're cannabis consumers now.
Mm-hmm.
And
cannabis substitution programs. I don't know whether you deal with them there in Iowa, but we have them here in Canada.
We don't have any.
They're not, not legal per se. There's actually one cannabis substitution program that actually has some support from Health Canada, and that has to do with the alcohol end of things. But unfortunately, there's others. Yeah, it was just announced in the news. High Hopes in British Columbia. We'll be doing this. Sarah has some experience in the past, I believe, in the helping people with the drug addictions end of things, and helping with cannabis in order for them to get off of opiates. So,
God, I bet that's not as slippery of a slope as cannabis and kids.
Yeah, like there's people who are out there risking, arrests and everything. Setting up places for people to come and get cannabis instead of opiate drugs, which are they're harming society and they're harming you internally, obviously, with your liver functions, and there's that roid rage because of being on them. It's just it's too bad. And people like yourselves with the RCC are trying to educate people and let them know that they have a choice.
Yeah, that's one thing that I am working towards starting this fall. I'm going to be doing some public community classes that are it's just going to be a basic Cannabis 101 class to where I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you bring your kids. I don't care if you bring your grandma. I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you have questions, this is the place. It's a safe environment. Nobody is going to go run and say, oh, they went to this class about pot or so on and so forth. No, it's not about that. It's about educating yourself on your body and your environment. That's really all it is.
That's what it is, exactly.
So
for
hopefully
5 years. For 5 years, I went to cafes, and I had documentary nights. I had 15 movies, 15 DVDs I had bought on medicinal cannabis, prohibition, all that stuff. And I went into the cafes. I had film projectors that I carried with me. I had drop-down screens that were already set up there for me. And I would show people. I was 50 people in a day. I'd be sitting there and talking to them about cannabis. And I would be showing them scientific movies like, what if cannabis cured cancer? So they could listen to the researchers instead of listening to me. I was just a patient. What research did I have? But you got to listen to those researchers, and they show those kids, right? And people are giving shit for getting them to cry because of the scene that's on it. But it's the truth, right? Like,
that is awesome, Al. That is awesome. We need more of that.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
Yeah.
And people
it's take it right to them.
A lot of it's fear, though.
My sidewalk sign said in big letters with reflective lettering, "Free cannabis," and then underneath it said information in little wee fine print. And people would stop in and say, "Where's the free cannabis?"
Where's the free cannabis?
But it would bring people in, right?
Yes.
And then I'd have people sharing me stories, and they would say, "Well, in that movie there, in Culture High, it talked about little Jade and how cannabis helped him with the seizures. Why wasn't my daughter given that choice?"
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, and that's why I'm here, and I'm educating people with cannabis. And
there's a wonderful man. His name is Mike Robinson, and he is the author of it's a story. It's called Genevieve's Love Story, and it talks about his journey with these two young gals that he had met, both on the spectrum. And long story short, it talks about their journey to becoming family and so on and so forth, and some of the breakthroughs that Mike has had just in the pursuit of trying to make it better for his stepdaughter. That's all it is. That's all it is. Again, like, most of us are not out here just wanting to get high. We're just trying to live. That's it.
Trying to live, trying to survive.
Trying to make the day easier for our kid or our parents.
What do they call them? Cannabis, like the patients who are just basically, moving from one state to another in order to be able to get to a cannabis program that can help them.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, is that, yes, people will literally move up. Yeah. They will pick up and move and relocate simply so they can have access to medication for their child.
Yeah, exactly.
That should never have to happen here. That shouldn't
happen. No, they shouldn't have to uproot the whole family and move a couple of states over in order to save the life of a child or any loved one, matter of fact, not just only a child.
And there again, jumping back over to the legal side of things, how does it make sense that in this state, you have a 4-year prison sentence? But one step over the line into this state, you just have a ticket and a fine. That's what it's like here in America.
Like this 4 years. So, okay, one's a ticket and a fine. The other one's 4 years. Is the quantity about the same? Like, does it matter? Like,
the quantity does matter. Your charges will go federal. If it's I believe it's something crazy like 5 kilos or something like that.
Something like that. So it's like 10 pounds.
Something like that,
kilos. You're talking kilos down in the U.S.
Sorry. Wrong system. But yeah. Now I forgot what we were saying.
Yeah, like here in Canada. Okay.
A
person can possess, like we can walk around the street with 30 grams. Above Yeah, we can walk. Yeah, it's can't. Yeah. Well, see, like we can grow our four plants unless we live in Quebec and Manitoba, because those provinces opted out allowing people to grow. But but in the Quebec case, they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court went with the Quebec government. So people who live in Quebec cannot grow cannabis, even though the rest of the country can. In Manitoba, it's still before the court, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, we can want 30 grams.
So if you have over 30
federal.
grams.
Ours is federal, and that's the thing. Like, you guys haven't got that federal thing.
Oh, yeah, you guys don't have state.
We don't have what? No, we have provinces. We have provinces. So states, provinces. We still have.
Oh, right, I know.
See, our medical program is federal. Our recreational program is partly federal and provincial and municipal. 3 levels of government are involved in our. Yeah.
I guess I did not realize that it was all 3 levels.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. so then let's say you get caught with over 30 grams. What happens? Do you
you can be charged. Okay. I don't know what. Yeah, you can be charged for having.
But would you go to jail, or would they just write you a ticket?
You go to court.
You go to court, okay? Because
you'd be charged with possession of over 30 grams. If you got caught with 35 grams or something like that, but if you got caught with a couple pounds, then you're going to be charged with a higher amount, and you'll end up with a court case. And
because as it is now, like in Iowa, if you even have a seed, just a seed will get you arrested. Whereas you cross over into Nebraska, which is our neighbor, and they allow you to have up to 28 grams. You can have up to an ounce on you. And anything over that, but under the federal level, is a ticket. It's a ticket. But a seed in Iowa, you're going to jail.
They consider a seed marijuana then. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, what's actually on the books, it's not illegal to consume marijuana. However, once you consume it, you are then in possession of it because it's in your system. And so it is illegal to possess, distribute, manufacture, blah, 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 down the line. However, on the books, there is no law against consumption itself. So if I could
you could be giving somebody a super toke and be charged with possession as well as distribution.
Yes, delivery
of it. Wow. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow. They really need to, because our federal only had certain parts, and then they allowed the provincial governments to do certain things. And, obviously your federal government
but they work
allowed
together,
you guys to have your medical program and the recreational people programs to get started. But
they work together, like your provincial and your federal. They work together, right?
Yeah. So federally, we didn't. Federal, there's the impaired and stuff like that. But when it comes to provincial, it's their jurisdiction when it comes to where consumption is or how it's consumed, and where
and like what it's commonly, like cannabis is commonly used in bird food. So we give it to the birds here in America, but we go to jail for it.
Yeah.
And then they call us jail. I just came up with that.
Oh boy. That's all.
And we're going to break.
I'm going to go to jail where I feed you. That's no good. All right. Well, I see it's the top of the hour again. And that means it's break time. Not the top of the hour again, but it's break time again. And we're going to go off and pay some bills. When we get back, I'm going to continue my discussion here with Alexys Fox as we compare things and find out how she is helping with educate people with cannabis. We're live here on paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
Back to the Pace Radio Show. I'm joined by my guest, Lex Fox, of the Responsible Consumers of Cannabis in Idaho, down in the USA. And just so anybody knows, you notice that Tamara's not here with me tonight. She is at work. Okay. Before the break, where were we again? Oh,
okay, real quick though.
Pardon me?
I'm real quick though. I'm not in Idaho.
Oh, so good. Correct me then. Iowa.
That was a test, right?
I was just checking to see if you were listening.
Did I pass? Yep. I was. That was a good one.
Oh. Okay.
You'd be surprised at how many people confuse that, though. You go, "Oh, I'm from Iowa," and they go, "Oh, you grow potatoes?" No, we don't grow potatoes.
Yes, we do.
Well, I mean, we do, but not like as a state. Look around.
Corn. We have corn.
Yeah, we have corn.
All right, we got a comment from a viewer. This is from Peggy and Terry. First time viewer. Good show so far. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
It is a good show. You will learn a lot. I have just from
okay. Now, during the last segment, you mentioned curriculum, that you had to change everything around. We were talking a bit about the fact that you felt that maybe the approach was wrong, that you're trying to use education in order to be able to eliminate stigma. And yes. I know I was the same way, trying to do that, thinking, how to do all that stuff. So as far as what have you learned, and what are you going to look at changing within your curriculum, and where would something like that be available?
So one thing that I decided I needed to add in verbally is I use 21st century basic living skills a lot. And you'd think that something that's simple and common sense, as much as simple as the concept sounds, you'd think that they would be basic living skills that people have and are taught and know. And this needs to be one of them. And right now, this is not one of them. And so I guess I'm banking on the fact that hopefully by some creativity, we can maybe trick people just for a second, just long enough to get them to drop that stigma and go, huh? What did she mean by that? So instead of, I used to think that, okay, I can get them with a big flashy piece of like fact and, this really cool fact about cannabis, and everybody's going to want to be on board with it, Well, no, nobody cares. They don't care how shiny that fact is if they still are against cannabis.
Yeah, because
Yes. So there is an invisible veil there that I ran into like a brick wall one day. And so, yeah, that's my approach now is I'm really trying to go towards eliminating stigma, whether that be, a campaign of, I wish I could get all the consumers, patients, recreational, whatever. I wish we could all have a meeting and just go, okay, guys, here's some things we're going to do. And here's some things we're not going to do, things that help support that stigma. There are things that we probably could choose to not do that would help that. Excuse me. But yeah, I completely had to change my entire approach because I'm not going for the education now. Now I'm going to remove your stigma. The education will have to come.
And how like as far as removing the stigma, like obviously like I said, I try to use education as a way to eliminate it, but as we agree, you can't always get people to read stuff and they're set in their minds on that. And it's just constantly keep at them. Like I know why I don't forget that blamed cannabis on a problem at a park, but yet when he developed cancer, who did he come and see?
Right. And it's difficult because like I couldn't imagine being. I've tried to put myself in everybody's shoes along the way, like even the doctor. I couldn't imagine being a doctor and then having to be at work and having a fear of what the repercussions are going to be if you suggest, not even prescribe, but if you suggest this certain treatment. You actually have to look over your shoulder and live in fear.
Oh, yeah.
This is the United States of America.
And you're trying to help your loved ones and you're risking going to jail because of a plant.
Yeah, we're not just risking it. We are going to jail.
Just like Peggy and Terry says, people got to stop worrying about what other people think. And, if they've got...
no, they don't. I disagree with that. I disagree wholeheartedly. Wholeheartly. Because
well, I look at it... I guess it comes down to what each person's situation may be.
True. And obviously, like from the whole gossip, and standpoint of things, like, sure, it doesn't matter what people think about you. But when it comes to your health, when it comes to the health of your environment, to the health of your society, I do want to be assured that the guy next to me and the guy down the line, I want to make sure that if they encounter something You know, whether it be smoking pot for the first time, whether it be trying to do a treatment as a patient for the first time, whether it be having your parent come to you and ask you about it and you have to introduce it to them. However, the route that you're taking, this is still a route that people are really uncomfortable in when they get in there. And they shouldn't be. You know, this is something that
unfortunately, it's going to take more than a couple of years to get rid of 90 or 100 years of prohibition.
And it's going to take a lot of leading by example.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's the biggest piece. I think that at least where I try and start, or where I think the next person can start to help this movement of, so what if
is there back to your medical program there? It just doesn't sound.
Oh my God, I know. Isn't it horrid?
Sorry.
It's horrid.
Like, is it, and this is along the advocacy end of things. Like, is there anybody who is advocating towards the government, or, you know,
Carl Olson. Carl
making
Olson,
people aware.
He used to work for Iowa State University, and I believe he is retired from that now. He was actually prosecuted and convicted in the 70s of trafficking cannabis, and his plight at the time was for religious purposes.
Okay. Yeah.
Since the 70s, this guy has been writing bills. He has been he has been involved in every aspect of Iowa legislation with cannabis, whether it be medically, religiously, recreationally, whatever it is. This guy is the expert on it. And this last year, he actually wrote a bill, which is the first one of its kind. And he did something different that all the other states in the U.S. have done. And he went about it kind of through the back door, and he simply went right to the DEA and asked that the state of Iowa have exemption from that law. Now, that had never been done. The approach has always been, we'll still have this law, but you just tell us it's okay. Well, no.
Right.
Iowa wants to go in and go, we want to be exempt so that when you give us the rights, we keep them. And we as state get to decide what our laws are for cannabis. And he's the expert on it when it comes to fighting this thing in this state. So we've got him. He is excellent, absolutely excellent.
Well, that's having people that are doing that, that's the way to, obviously fight to make change. It takes, I always looked at it as all the advocacy, everything is we're like an octopus. We have to go at cannabis legalization with many different arms and many different ways in order to defeat prohibition.
Yeah, because it's not a blanket thing, by any means. And we've made it that way, we've made that bed, so we've got to lie in it. But for all the dollars,
whether you're writing your state representatives, or I don't know what they do as far as here we had all kinds of marches and rallies. I don't know what they're doing, what you do down there, whether anybody gets involved in anything along that line.
There again, it's hard because of all the legalities, and a lot of people are parents. And
there's that freaking charge. If you're having a protest against cannabis laws, you could be charged and convicted like yourself.
Yes. So we always wear that hat.
Does that mean you lose the right? Does that mean you lose the right to protest because they assume that you're consuming cannabis, even though you may not be? You're just there.
Yes. Because you're gathering
you could be wearing a shirt that has a cannabis leaf on it and
gathering where marijuana is being used. It's in chapter
Yeah.
124. So yeah, we always wear that hat before everything else, unfortunately. And I think that's part of why we're so slow on everything and being able to advance anything is because everything we do, we got to look over our shoulder and go, okay, where's the sheriff?
Yeah.
In more or less words. And it's difficult. It makes it really difficult. And that's why I say descheduling should have been the very first thing that any of us did.
But how do you have 42 states with medical cannabis laws when your federal government says that there is no medical value in cannabis? It's just...
And think of all the dollars that get poured into that.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. Yeah,
and what are they doing with all this, with all the evidence and all this proof and all these case studies and all of this medically valid and sound information? What are they doing with it?
They put it on the shelf and then they say, we need more studies.
Yep, we need more stuff.
But yet, you can look at people, in the past, one of our guests, these were parents of their child. We weren't speaking with the child, but we were just speaking with the parents. And it's to see that child now, all these years later, it's just phenomenal to see the life that the quality of life, seeing them all grown up and and because of cannabis, and that's because somebody had to take a risk, like even here in Canada for I'm going to say for the first 12 years that we were only allowed to smoke our cannabis. It wasn't until a court decision that changed that. Yeah, we're only allowed to smoke it. So you could just imagine. Yeah, we had patients who were children. They were 5 years old. That the law required them to smoke it, and their mother was breaking the law to make oil for them and put it into capsules or a tincture. And so that family got involved with the Supreme Court in that challenge.
And
because it was ridiculous. And it sounds like,
think about the stress that she was under standing at that oven all night making those. Yeah. Think about the stress that was going through her mind. I can't fathom,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the other motivator is the people that went before me that have fought for this and have
our forefathers, Jack.
Yeah, and some of them aren't, and some of them aren't, and some of those people aren't with us anymore. You look over my shoulders right here. This picture, this is a character picture of a lady by the name of Michelle Rainey. She fought for years for medicinal cannabis.
Yes, I know who she is.
Do you? Well,
yes. Oh my gosh.
This is the character drawing for the front cover of Treating Yourself magazine, and I was presented it in 2011 at the Treating Yourself Expo from the Michelle Rainey Foundation for Patient Advocate of the Year because of what I was doing in order to make change. And Michelle was the same way, going around and educating people about cannabis through YouTube. And I got to see her talk about having problems going to the bathroom. We both had Crohn's. Did I ever think that I'd be talking to people about shit in a public forum? But I saw her do it. Saw her do it.
Yes.
And that inspired me to do it as well.
Yeah, she had no fear when it came to that. She just knew it had to be done and she was doing it.
Correct.
You need to know.
Correct.
So
your politicians, she was doing it all. Handing out kits, the whole bit. Information, helping people with paperwork, whatever it took. So I was presented that, and she's still involved in the cannabis end of things.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
So, but let's see what are you looking at doing down the road, future wise? We've got about 5 or 6 minutes here still. So.
Oh, wow. So like I kind of mentioned, I'm looking at this fall putting on some public forum community classes. I'm working with with an outfit out of Texas, and it's fairly early in development, but we are looking at kind of recreating. Do you remember from the 80s? Like, well, in America, we had Partnership for a Drug-Free America. So like the egg commercials of this is your brain on drugs, paid for by Partnership for a Drug-Free America. And they used to have these commercials and this campaign about how to talk to your kids about drugs. We are turning that around, and we are creating a campaign for how to talk to your parents about drugs. There will also be one how to talk to your grandparents about drugs. There will also be one how to talk to your
Minister. That's what I heard.
Minister. My friend just says minister. But yeah, so we're gonna have a public campaign that will kind of showcase some of the points from a consumer's side. And trying to get some of that mutual understanding. So that's one thing. I'm still working on my curriculum. I believe that will actually be in going through a pilot semester.
Nice.
I believe this next fall. So that'll get me some good outcomes.
Well, we'll have to have you back.
Absolutely, I would love to.
When you get that all done and all, like we had I had AC Moon on recently.
Yes, that was a great show. I love her.
She the University of Virgin Islands.
Yeah,
doing cannabis programs down there. Like, wow, like I know down around here we've got some colleges and some universities and stuff that are starting to offer that, but I really like to see it more involved in the medical end as well, and educating the doctors and the nurses.
Yes,
on cannabis.
that was really, it used to be a big push, 20 years ago when the industry was kind of coming about. But there's been a real drawback from that, and it's kind of sat more just, education for anything in the cannabis industry is pretty much for cannabis professionals, and some for healthcare. But yeah, there's still even with that, there's still so many gaps, and compliance issues change all the time. How can anybody know how to be compliant? Because it changes from day to day. So I don't know. I'm doing what I can though.
And you know what? That's all we can ask of patients and advocates is all that they can do. Like, patients, they get sick. That's why they're patients.
Yes, and they need medicine that helps them instead of hurts them.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your guys' system, I think it's very well done compared to the shit that I've seen being in the US. So
yeah, I know. And the thing is, I don't think even with our system, there's still more room for improvement.
Always. You're always better than what you do.
We had things that we don't have now. In the past, we had lounges. We don't have any lounges now because smoking of cannabis went into the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. So we don't have the lounges anymore. We had almost 20 lounges here in Ontario, and like Toronto itself had almost a dozen.
Oh my gosh! And so all those businesses,
they all had to shut down. And there's only a couple sort of rogue places. It's unfortunate, and
voted on by the same people that commissioned it, huh?
Yeah, well, the federal government did that, but as far as the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, here it's provincially, Our good thing provincially is that our government allowed us to smoke cannabis publicly, and they opened up the stores. Originally, the previous government was going to limit it to 25 to 50 stores for the whole province. Presently, with the government we have now, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,700 stores in our province.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lots of stores. There's no shortage of them. But then they allowed the municipalities to decide on whether they wanted to opt in or opt out of allowing stores. So if they opted out, they got like a one-time $5,000 payment to deal with enforcement. But if they opted in, then they got a percentage of so much money that was coming to them, and so on and so forth.
Building in options like that's not something that they do down here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but down there, what do you see down there? You guys do automatic expungements with your laws, whereas we don't up here.
What do you mean automatic?
Like some of the states down there have done automatic expungements for any people who've had possession laws. They've just written it into the law. Whereas here, our federal government just said, okay, we won't charge you for it, but you're still going to have to go around, do your running around. You're still going to have to pay those fees for those fingerprints that you got to get back from the police station. You still got to pay for this. You still got to pay for that. And you're still going to have to wait. Right? And whereas you guys just write it in the law and proof it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not in your state because you don't have legal, right?
We have illegal.
Yeah, you have illegal.
Yeah, nothing legal, no decrim, no nothing.
Yeah. Okay, we're down to about the last 2 minutes. Shout out time, person, place, a thing, anything that you'd like to say before we go.
Educate yourselves. Educate everyone around you if you can, even if it's something simple like, hey, did you know that CBD is different than THC? Start a conversation, something, start a fire, anything, whether you smoke it, whether you don't, it doesn't matter, because it's going to matter for your kids and it's going to matter for your parents. Again, I think about my parents. So
I will. Just a quick note to Peggy. Our res is up here. We got 50 or 60 stores in the reses as well, and that doesn't include the 1,700 that we got in our provinces. So we got lots of stores. Just so you know, there we go. We got a comment there right from them there. So, all right. Well, other than that, we are done, and I'd like to let everybody know that you can find the Pace Radio Network at paceradio.net. You can find the Pace Radio Show at paceradioshow.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn. We're on, and that's where I found Lex. You can find us on Facebook, so on and so forth. Sometimes it's just too much social media.
Yes.
Too many places to go. But other than that, we'll see you all next week. Thank you to Legacy420.com, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, as well as Limestone City Hydroponics for making our voices louder and making sure that our patients' voices get heard. Other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see everybody next week. I got to find that button. There we go. Bye-bye. See you later.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.